And then I started prospecting in like the first 5, 10 minutes. I set a couple appointments and I was like, man, I've been making this thing way bigger of a deal than it needs to be. And that's when our sights really got set. Yolanda and I, the following month, went to our first Mike Ferry event as a couple and as adults and all those kind of things. And it was life changing and we had no money, but we told Mike, hey, I need to get coached. I need to be held accountable. I have no way to pay you right now, but I'm going to find out a way to pay you. And so let's sign me up. And Yolanda and I put like maybe 15, 18 deals under contract over like a 45-day period and made $100,000 pretty much in a 30-day window.
Hi, I'm Noelle with Today's Brew, where top producing real estate agents share their tips and tricks on taking more listings, making more money, and having fun doing it. On today's episode, we welcome Chris Hardee from Houston, Texas. Hi, Chris.
Hi, how you doing?
I am well. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Super pumped up for this and excited to preach the real estate gospel, I guess, right?
Yes, I'm excited to have you on. Tell everyone a little bit about yourself. Give us your background.
So background is I've pretty much been raised in real estate. My parents got in the real estate industry when I was about 4 years old. And so I was running around a real estate office, going to Mike Ferry events and doing all those different kinds of things as a child. And so you can imagine the last thing in the world I ever wanted to do was sell any real estate or do anything with a house, anything like that. But of course, as you grow up, you mature as a young adult. We started to realize the opportunity and actually kind of getting into that family business. And since it is kind of what you know, just by nature, I'd hear people talking about real estate and you don't even think that you're affiliated with it as a child or as a teenager, but then you realize you know so much about it. And so my wife and I, we actually lived in Austin. We're from Houston, but we lived in Austin and she was going to college there. And at some point we're like, you know what? Let's just go back to Houston. And, we probably should have done real estate in Austin because it's a beautiful place and it would have been great. But, Houston is what we knew. And so we came back to Houston, Texas and got with Century 21, which was my father, my mother had about, a few Century 21 franchises. And so we started there. And then it's been a wild ride since then. So, a little bit different of a background because so many people think real estate after they're 22 or 25 or 35 or 55. And it's kind of just been around me the whole time.
I mean, yeah, you're a lifer, literally.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you kind of gave that background part. So when did you decide, I'm assuming you were always full-time and because you were already introduced into the Mike Ferry organization, which let's go ahead and say congratulations to that. Cause not too many people figure that out right away.
That's right.
So I probably can't ask you a lot of questions I would ask other agents because you really were bred into it and had all the right tools from the beginning. So let's just go ahead and talk about still your transactions when you started versus where you are now.
Yeah, great. So just for everybody to understand, like, just because I'm in a real estate office for 2, 3, 4 hours every single day until, from 4 to 13 years old, and then escaping that when I could, soon as I was 15, 16 and more, I was kind of a troubled kid. I'd caused trouble and I probably, made my parents stress a lot growing up. So I'm a high school dropout. There's a lot of reasons why I shouldn't be where I'm at and shouldn't be leading in the position that I'm in right now. But you learn. And when I was about 18, I got my license just to make my mom happy because I was like, you're a dropout of high school, doing things, but not all the best things. And you're just going, let me do this one thing for her because, her friends and the people that work for her know that her kid's a dropout. And so I needed to do something. And, I got my license. I did it for a little bit, but I kind of made a little bit of money and I checked out a year later and moved to Austin. And, I went to Austin with $30,000 and I thought I was rich. And I think my wife and I, probably spent it in about 6 months, 8 months. And then we had to get some jobs and I did some apartment locating, in Austin. And it was a lot different then. And it was stressful because a lot of these complexes were selling. And so you would get all these people into these properties. And then by the time you were supposed to get paid, no money would come and they go, sorry, that was with Graystar and now we're Gables. And you're like, no. What? And so, I was about 22. I dealt with that for a couple of years. And when I was 22, I got my tax, my W-2 or whatever. And I looked at it and it's like, my broker goes, man, you were probably supposed to make like 75K this year, but you only got paid 13,000 from the complexes. And that was the second year that it happened. And we realized at that point, it's like, okay, my wife can continue to go to school and she wanted to be a nurse and she loved that idea. And she probably still kicks me in the shin sometimes, because I think she would have liked to finish that. But I knew that if we came back, we kind of would have more of a base. And so at about 23, I was 23, she's about 20, we start real estate full time. And, even though I was in that space where my father had gone to Mike Ferry events and it really changed his business and his agent's business, the last thing you really want to do is get on the phone and prospect. And so in fear, even though I'm a super expressive person and I try to be as dynamic of a speaker as I can, I had so much fear. And so for about 6 months, we were posting on Craigslist, trying to do because we're like, we know how to do leases. I know how to do leases. My wife got her license. Let's do the leases. So we'd be sitting there all day just posting ads for like lease spaces for houses and townhomes and condos. And then, back then Craigslist would like ghost all your ads. So you could spend a week building out all these things and then they all get ghosted. And I remember 6 months in, we had probably helped 40 people get into a lease property, but it worked with like 240 people to make that happen.
Oh, no,
And so
thank
you're
you.
wasting money, wasting time. And I remember my dad told me, he goes, hey, they're doing Mike Ferry's son's going to College Station, Texas, and there's going to be a lot of agents there prospecting. You should just go do it. And we went out and did that. And I remember, Patrick Ferry sees me taking, forever to get my computer out my bag and get my leads out my bag because I just had so much fear. Everybody there has like, custom suits and they flew in just to prospect. And I'm there in, $20 Ross clothes, and I'm sitting there like, this is out of my league. And then, I started prospecting in like the first 5-10 minutes, I set a couple of appointments and I was like, man, I've been making this thing way bigger of a deal than it needs to be. And that's when our sights really got set. Yolanda and I, the following month, went to our first Mike Ferry event, as a couple and as adults and all those kind of things. And it was life-changing and we had no money, but we told Mike, hey, I need to get coached. I need to be held accountable. I have no way to pay you right now, but I'm going to find out a way to pay you. And so let's sign me up. And Yolanda and I put like maybe 15, 18 deals under contract over like a 45-day period and made 100 grand pretty much in a 30-day window. Like, so you sign up for coaching July 21st or 18th or something. And then August 5th or whatever is the first coaching call. By September, like 10th, 15th, we made like 100 grand, 93,500.
Wow.
And so the optics changed a little bit for us at that point. So that was kind of the beginning. And so we did that for several years. And, we really enjoyed, doing the business. And we never thought about like being a leader or being leaders or running teams or running a brokerage. That kind of stuff just kind of happened. Due to a lot of like crazy things happening in our lives. But the goal at that point was like, well, let's go be those 100 deal a year agents. And the mindset shifted from like, I'm such in fear of doing what I need to do to where it's like, man, when I do this thing every day, it produces this kind of result. And so we were like 25 years old, 23 years old and be at resorts for 2 weeks at a time. And people are like, who the hell are these kids here? And it's like, you get the listings and then the buyer's agents have to go work for you to get them sold. So I can go take 4 or 5 listings and go, bye. I'm going to go to Cancun for a week and a half. And then, wake up every morning and look at offers, so that's kind of how it started.
And if you want, you can even hop on the phone a couple of days a week there and keep prospecting, which I have seen people do. They'll be sitting right out in San Diego on their balcony of their hotel, making their calls before the day gets started in San Diego, and they're making calls back on the East Coast, getting work done and then still enjoying their vacation. And you're right. It's a weird concept that if you put in a little bit of work, that it works.
Well, when you get those skills up and you take the action, and I was telling one of my agents in a coaching call yesterday, it's like, you don't even realize that you look at prospecting like a jail sentence. Oh, I can only prospect from like my prospecting space at the house, or I have to be at an office, or I have to be there. You should definitely have, something set up where you're at most of the time that has easy access to any lead, your leads, your top leads, your scripts, your responses, objection handlers, all those things, right? However, when you feel like, an agent goes, well, I made 20 contacts less than I should have. Man, well, like you drove an hour to that listing appointment. You could be calling your leads on the way there. You stop by that restaurant. Hey, but while you're waiting on the food, call 1 or 2 people real quick. You need to be doing, this needs to be just a side, a side thought. Like it's not even something that you're thinking about. It's just automatic that I need to be communicating with people consistently. And when you do that, you'll go on vacation and you find out that the people next to you need to sell their house in Tennessee just because you're so good at asking questions. And so these conversations should really come natural to most of us, but we look at prospecting as such a pain point instead of the fact that when we do it, we make a lot of money.
No, you're right. You were an excellent speaker, by the way. Everyone's going to enjoy every bit of this interview, which leads me kind of into the next part, because you mentioned coaching a few people. Now, do you have a coaching program as well? I see you're pro agent.
Yep, we got the pro agent on, and I may offend somebody. I do have
No, I love it. I love it. Go ahead and showcase it. We want to see it in full screen.
Make real estate great again. And the reason why we kind of came up with that is, like, number one, just kind of see if people get upset about stuff. But in reality, I think that I remember a different time growing up. For example, when I was growing up, I didn't get to go to the school down the street from my house. I went to the school literally across the street from my parents' brokerage, which was 25 miles away from our house.
Oh my goodness.
So for 2 hours before school every day, I'm at the office. For 5 hours after school every day, unless I was in sports, I'm at the office. And, my dad they used to have these Mike Ferry, and I forgot the other guy off the top of my head, but they used to do something called sweat hogs. You couldn't leave. You couldn't leave the office at all without 2 appointments in the day. And so there'd be people setting appointments at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, because you could not go home without your 2 appointments. You couldn't sit down without 1 appointment. You couldn't do this. It was this like crazy, like military style prospecting, which probably scares most people. But I remember people being at the office until 10 o'clock at night. And I would watch them I would watch them almost set appointments. And then I would watch them talk the appointments out of the appointment and watch my dad, what the hell, And so, I think there was a different time. I think people want it to be too easy these days. And in reality, we're in such a simple business where we just have to have conversations. And if you have 20, 30, 40 conversations a day consistently, and spend, 3-4 hours a day on it, you're going to get somewhere. And so, when it comes to, pro agent or being in any kind of leadership, position, it really comes because Yolanda and I were doing really, really good, selling houses. And some things happened with my parents and the brokerage, where the brokerage was going to kind of go away. And it was like the number one Century 21 brokerage in South Texas, Louisiana. And, there's 150, 200 agents, and we have 5 offices. At that time, my wife and I owned a couple of the offices, and my parents had a few of the other ones. And, things were taking place to where the business was not running, and it wasn't running profitable. And so there wasn't any leadership there. And so my wife and I, at a sales meeting for the company, like a quarterly meeting, we go, hey, we got to get the sales up. Who are the 5, 8, 10 people in here that want to be coached every day so we can bring the production up? And we got like 4 or 5 people, and none of them had ever sold a house before. And in like 7, 8 months, we helped those people sell collectively 130 transactions with just those 6 people that had never sold any real estate.
Yeah.
They had maybe done 1 or 2 rentals, and they'd been in real estate for 2, 3 years. These were the people that really shouldn't have been in real estate. And so before that time, people would want to watch us prospect. And I had an office. We had a 1,000 square foot office just for Yolanda and I to prospect from. Right. And so we're prospecting from that office. People would go, hey, we want to watch you set appointments. And I was kind of an asshole. I'd go like, don't bother me. Don't talk to me. Watch me. And I would use them. So Noelle, what I would do is I'd go, hey, Noelle, don't mess with me, but I'm about to set 3 appointments in front of you. And so like, don't move a muscle until I set the 3 appointments. And then just to do it, I would just try to do whatever I can to set those appointments. Yeah. And we'd bring some people in. So I went from being in such fear of prospecting to going, I still have that fear, but I'm going to create so much accountability to where I have to do it. And so that's when I started getting really good with for sale by owners, because they were the scariest lead source.
All right, let's stay on for sale by owners for a second.
Yeah.
That was something that I was going to reference, and it's something that my coach and I are working on right now.
Yeah.
Because he was like, okay, what's your most fearful place? And I'm like, well, FSBOs. I was like, I don't think I've ever called them. I'm like, I don't want to call them. I'd rather call an expired. I'm like, FSBOs in my sphere, for some reason, they're the most stressful to me. I'd rather just call a stranger. I don't want to call
my aunt, or that guy that's trying to sell his house for 2 years. You know?
I'm like, I don't want to call my friends who are going to be nice to me. I want to call this mean person. But what are you seeing that works? I want to see, how are you converting your FSBOs? Like, walk me through what you might say to one to get in front of their face.
Yeah. I think one of the best lines anybody could use is, are you married to the idea of selling this property on your own? Or in reality, are you just looking to net the most money possible? And that person goes, well, I'm just really looking to net the most money possible. That's the answer you want. The person that says, no, I'm going to sell it myself regardless. And that person is not really thinking about things logically. So when they say, you know what, we really just want to net the most money. Well, if I could show you today at 5 how I can net you more money than selling this thing on your own the way you're doing it now, or listing it with any other agent in the marketplace, it's going to be a no-brainer at that point that we can take it from there and see if I need to be that listing agent for you to get this thing sold. But I don't want you to go ahead and make a decision or list your own with me right now. Let's just make the decision to get together, and then you can make an informed, educated decision after that 30 minutes that we speak. Fair enough?
Oh, nice. Yeah, you just told them exactly. You just told them what to do.
Yeah. And so as long as you can get somebody to, now this is the problem for most agents, they don't understand that everybody has a different time where they kind of raise the curtain or really just like kind of drop their guard a little bit. And so you're going to have to utilize authority, humor, being super genuine, curiosity. It needs to feel very real. And you should feel as if you would want to feel if somebody was going to call you. Now, the mindset is what I think that if I was to move to Colorado, let's say I moved to Breckenridge, Colorado, and me and my wife are there for 4 years and we love it, but then we go, hey, we need to move back to Florida. Okay. If I really wanted to find the hungriest agent, I'd go for sell by owner. And I would find out who's actually consistently calling me the most, offering the most the most value. And then of course, being relentless about staying on top of mind. And that person is going to kind of showcase the fact that they have that work ethic that I'd be looking for. And so for most, and one of our agents, Diego, he goes, I talked about it one day and he goes, hey, I just sold a guy's house that he said, hey, I know I could find the right agent by just going for sell by owner. And he goes, every time I list my house, I go for sell by owner because I think the guy was in the military or something. So he moved around a lot. That's how now I don't think all for sell by owners think that way, but what I think they believe is that they, have had either bad experience with an agent. They feel like they're overpaid and they haven't really been in a situation where they feel like they needed them or need them yet. And they need to have somebody that is going to ask them the right questions so they can share the right perspective of what could come up ahead. And hey, if you were to know that, by the time you realize you need an agent, and not just any agent, an agent who specializes in selling homes just like me in your area, right? And you waited 2, 3, 4 months, and the way the market's been, there's been more inventory piling up. How would you feel if the issue is not even the commission? It's the fact that there's 5 other properties for sale on the same street. Is that going to bring your price up or is it going to bring it down?
Going to bring it down.
Exactly. And so, that's exactly why people like you are going to work with people like me now, and then you just kind of go in that conversation. But with for sale by owners, I think the one knack that I really had was the fact of I didn't wait to a lot of agents and a lot of my friends with Mike Ferry, any other kind of coaching company or real estate brokerage, they go, I talk to that person today and then I'm going to call him next Monday. Then I call him next Monday. I call him next Monday. I think that people's, bandwidths are not like that anymore. I think that in the last 5, 8 years, people do not have the attention span to remember you a week later. And they've already been kind of, they've been called a lot. They've had a lot of crappy conversations with agents that just don't have the kind of quality communication skills that you may have. And so I would rather talk to that person and then call them back in 5 minutes and go, dude, I just can't get this property out of my mind. And in reality, if I'm going to be selling other people's properties around here and netting them more money than you're netting, why are we just going to prolong this process? And why don't we just go ahead and get together? And I guarantee you by now, Mr. Seller, you're not a spring chicken. If I go out there and what I say doesn't make absolute sense and you feel like I'm full of crap, then we're going to take 15 minutes. I'm going to shake your hand and you're going to kick me out. Or I'm going to sell this property and get you exactly where you wanted to be. Which one would you rather have?
Well, I love your bluntness. That's perfect. And it's exactly what we need more of. And you're doing it the right way. Because I was speaking with someone earlier about this, and a lot of agents approach FSBOs as their ego's in the way. It's ego driven, and they want to just tell you, the seller, that you're doing it wrong, incorrectly.
You know what I think it is? I think it is the fact that most agents are not financially in a position where they're actually better than their clients. And so when I meet with the client, I'm going like, is this person, I don't think about this like that in a mean way, but in reality, I may meet with somebody and I'm out of production for the most part. I may do some deals if they're the right price point and the person's like, I'm referring them to you. You got to do it, Chris. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. However, if you are envisioning that you are going to be a champion in the industry and you're going to have a high level of income, you need to adopt that mindset now. And if you are to that point, you need to just have this understanding that these people probably are not in a financial position as you are. They don't have confidence in the future like you do. And if you understand that, you can actually probably take better care, it'd be better for you to be giving them advice versus vice versa. But most agents, when they're prospecting, guys, I always tell the agents, if they're at the desk, sometimes they almost look like they're on the phone, but they're walking backwards. But you're never going to set appointments walking backwards. So when I'm going to get on the phone with you, I'm going to walk forward. And I'm going to make it to where like, hey, I'm just going to take you where I'm going with the conversation. I'm going to
Mhm.
ask you the right questions. And I also don't want to waste your time, you
Yeah, and
know?
some enthusiasm behind your words.
Yeah, and I think they can tell if you've been there before. And
Yeah.
so, now the benefit is when I first started, I had that kind of ability to give people the feeling, my first clients I helped buy a house, it was like 550, which was super high for our area back then.
Mhm.
And it was with this lady I was on a team with. And, the people were like, you got to do that. You have to sell what, 40, 50 homes a year? And I'm like,
It's my first
yeah,
one.
it's my first one, right? But they just felt that. So you cannot. One of the things, guys, is if you're prospecting, you got to do it. If a guy is gonna go to the bar and ask a girl, for a dance, they're at a honky tonk, will you kind of come with me to the, they're not. It's not going to work
Gotta have
out.
a little more confidence.
You
Yeah.
have to have the demeanor, and so it's a mindset. Now, if you don't have that confidence, guys, and you're prospecting, it's usually because you don't have confidence in what you're in control of. Meaning, hey, maybe you're not in control in your business right now to set an appointment every day, but you're in control of the fact that you could talk to 40 people. You could
Yeah.
follow up with 5 people. You could follow your regimen. You could do a listing presentation role play. You could role play with other agents on lead generation calls. You can hop on a Zoom with other people. So many things that if you understood you had total control of and you executed over time, you go, man, it's like if you haven't had a Coke in 6 months versus if you stopped drinking a Coke yesterday, you get way more confident in your ability to be resilient to stay the course, right?
Mhm.
And so you
Mhm.
got to get confident in these other things before you start getting insanely confident in actually the conversion. And with for sale by owners, if everybody's gonna mostly not follow up with them, and then the ones that do, are following up like a week later, 3 days later, imagine how you stand out if you talk to that person 2, 3, 4 times over the first 48 hours. Nobody's going to stand over you in terms of like them knowing like what agent wants to get this deal. And then if you even talk to them 2, 3, 4 times, they're answering the phone for a reason. And I would go see them regardless of how upset they sound, mean or nice, whatever the case is. Like most of that is just us thinking that they don't want to work with us. But if they're on the phone call, they're interviewing us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. If they're answering and picking up and not, yeah, and sending you to voicemail or telling you to never call them again.
Yeah.
So let's touch on NAR and how you are handling this with your agents in your firm. How are you? I've kind of tried to steer away from the conversations a lot because in the beginning it was getting a lot of hype and there was a lot of negativity. And I was like, well, I'm not going to talk about it because it should just be business as usual. What do you think? Because I've always just said in my mind, no, if we're going out and doing our job and the listing agents doing their job, they're having the discussion there, which is what I've done.
Yeah. Number one, I would say that when you're watching these people flip flop,
Mhm.
95% of these people don't have their own opinion. And you may have one opinion that's differs right now just because you have more buyers versus if you had more sellers. And then, if you had a different kind of business, you may not worry about it the same way. I think that the big issue, the big issue lies more on the client. I think before there was a lot more transparency. And now you're going to find that certain companies are going to try to finagle their way in cutting the agent out. There's going to be some companies they get in the way. They go, okay, now we're going to take more listing percentage, offer less buyer percentage possibly, and kind of run that way with the seller. I think there's going to be a lot of different ways they try to adapt to this. I think that more than ever, you need to be a strong listing agent. I think that a lot of this depends on what kind of market we're in. The good news for agents right now, Noel, is I feel that if we were in a market like we had with COVID,
Mhm.
it would be a market in which the buyer's agent would be doing deals for almost nothing. If we were in that 2020, 2021, 2022 before things kind of settled down, I think that you'd have buyers go, hey, I can work with any agent. There's 10 offers on this house already, and that person may be doing a deal for way less than they would today. The benefit is that most of the time the market's not it's not that hot. And most of the time it's somewhere in this 3, 4, at least in Texas and Houston, even though the market's not as good as it was then, we're still in that verge where, hey, certain areas have 2 months of inventory, certain areas have a
Yeah,
week
that's
of
what we are.
inventory, and
Yeah.
then certain areas have 9 months, 10 months. I did comps earlier for one of the agents. We were looking at stuff. There's 70 homes for sale in one neighborhood, and one,
Definitely not here. Definitely not here. I mean, it's still 10 offers on homes in desirable areas. I mean,
yeah,
I have a buyer that literally looked for, I'm not even kidding, 2.5 years because
yeah,
our market's not changed and constantly outbid, like you said, and buyers agents doing exactly what you said, reducing their commission already to
yeah.
try to help them get the house. And even that wasn't working.
Yeah, I think
I
so, the value, I think the agents need to understand where their value comes from. There is a few different aspects that are going to benefit the buyer in this situation. So like, let's say that most times the buyer and the agent kind of feel that unless the agent is getting them some closing costs paid, getting money off the price, then the deal is just, it's just whatever, right? Because
Mhm.
everybody wants this crazy deal. However, when you're in a market that's insanely competitive, just getting the house is more than enough. You know
Is a
what I mean?
massive win, a massive win.
Because if I said, hey, Noel, if I have a house that you absolutely love, 10 out of 10, but you're going to have to pay $8,000 more out of pocket to get
Mhm.
into this house, and you're going to beat everybody else's offer, it's a no brainer.
No-brainer.
No brainer. And so I think the problem for us as agents is we don't want to have that conversation that, hey, just getting the oil change done at the basic level, done correctly, is
Mhm.
more than enough to be able to pay for it. Right now, of course, you'd love them to bring you a water. You love to get this. You love, hey, you know what? Just today we're doing free windshield wipers with every oil change, and then there's money into it. Right? That would be great. But what's worse is going to get an oil change and the guy left the cap undone and it all dripped out, but you got it for $9.99, and now you got to go pay 59 or $100 or $200 to get it done right. And so I think that in your presentation with a buyer, things need to be discussed that are not only showing, oh, I'm going to either I get paid by the seller or the other agent,
Mhm.
or all that kind of verbiage.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I really enjoyed today's conversation, and I hope to have you back on and touch on more things maybe later in the year because this was amazing. This was perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I could probably do it for 3 hours.
Well, and I would be okay with that. I think everyone would, but I think we should chop it up into like 2 or 3 shows.
That's great. No, I look forward to that. I look forward to that, and I really appreciate getting on here. And it's great having a conversation with somebody that's like in tune with reality of what's happening in real estate. Versus if you're seeing a lot of trainings, a lot of podcasts, it's just a lot of fluff that's not going to get somebody a deal today. And agents right now need to find out what is it going to take for me to get a deal today. Because in your market, there's hundreds, if not 1,000 people that are going to be doing a deal today. And so more than enough people are out there. Are you going to let 500 other agents out hunt you today? Don't let that be the case. You need to be trained at a high level. You need to be kept accountable, and you need to make sure that you are getting after it at a high level.
Yeah, and something tells me all of your agents are in the right hands, and are going to be very successful moving forward.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I had a great time.